for this pilot as part of Project Guardian, the team here with Swift and Chainlink, we were really thinking about from a fund manager perspective, now that we've tokenized our share register on chain, and that solves some of the kind of distribution, related questions. We wanted to also think, what are the other parts of the fund lifecycle that, currently are sitting off chain that would need to be automated for us to, really drive more efficiencies. And there we really identified payments as something that still, very likely need to exist in a fund. So even if you tokenize the fund, think of it inside the fund, what you're buying are traditional assets that still need to, for the foreseeable future, be settled using kind of bank account cash. And so that's where we, started the conversation and discussion with, with Swift and also with the, kind of the Chainlink team to see, how can we bring the off-chain payment piece into the fund lifecycle? Because the reality is, a lot of the systems today in asset management, a lot of the payment flows today in asset management still rely on kind of bank transfers. And so this is a very practical and kind of near-term, option to really explore. So the problem statement really came down to how do we ensure that we bring the payments on chain, off-chain payments on chain in a way that does not, fundamentally change the existing, processes and systems such that it's not as interoperable. How can we process things end to end to drive kind of certain efficiency? And then, off-chain data that needs to come back on chain. How do we do it in a way that, delivers it with trust and kind of and it being verified, especially kind of when we're talking about Swift messages and Swift payment. So with that, we then, I guess I hand it over to Giles. Yeah.
So I'll go through the workflow diagram in a bit, but before I do that, I just want to level set what we're all about, okay? We're a cooperative, right? Provide secure messaging services, a network. We have 50% all payments reach our end destination within 5 minutes, virtually all in 24 hours. Some fun facts for you. The world's GDP goes over us every 2.5 to 3 days. And actually, 52 to 56% of our messages are security-based. Now, I'm going to jump into the workflow straight so you can understand how we get the correct identifications, and it flows through the entire network to end and close the entire loop for subscriptions and redemptions for the funds. Now, just to orientate you guys on this. So on the top side, we have the DLTs, the blockchains. Chainlink is in the middle, right? And we have the Swift network at the bottom, just for this, right? Now, Swift Transaction Manager will do an API call, right? This is a program, a scheduled task to pick up to retrieve the pending subscription and redemption flows information from the DTA, right? So it links to Chainlink. Chainlink then moves on to retrieve the subscription details, the amount, and the fund distribution ID. Now, just please take note on the left. You will see that I've put there the subscription ID, the fund distributor information. This is key to ensure that the entire information flow is coherent throughout. From the tokenized fund, which is UBS, the digital transfer agent, which is I think SBI, down to Chainlink's platform, down to Swift, back up. One full circle. Once the information comes back down, Swift Transaction Manager once again will trigger a payment initiation, or you will call it a payment request. For all the ISO 20022 buffs out there, this is the Pain 13 message that goes down. Now, what we'll do is we'll append, once again, all the highlighted stuff there. We'll append the subscription ID, the distribution ID. We will map it. In this case, we map it to the BIC, right? Right. I think there'll be some questions out there. Is there any way else of doing it? Yes, we can think of it as LEI as well. But devil's in the details once we get to the proper workflow, right? So the fund administrator will be the beneficiary, and we append on the UETR. So this is the unique identifier that we have that tracks payment across the entire Swift network. With this, the fund distributor receives that and initiates a payment. Initiates payment. So this will be a PEX 008, right? It will have the BICs, the subscription ID, and the UETR. And this goes through over CBPR Plus, which is the cross-border service that we have over Swift, right? So this entire leg, it can have multiple intermediaries inside. Everything will be tracked to the GPI tracker. So you can, at any one point in time, you can see where the payment is, the status, who's pending, what's going on, right? From there, it gets to the fund admin. The fund admin then does payment. As a confirmation payment, once they've done it, they will send a confirmation payment. It sends up to the GPI tracker. Once again, always subscription ID, BICS, UETR, always there. Swift triggers the subscription and the redemption state closure, right, via API again. This is the Swift Transaction Manager that does this. So what it does is it gives the proof of delivery of funds up to Chainlink Platform. The Chainlink Platform then calls the subscription redemption functions in the DTA contract, which is the digital transfer agent, right? And from there, what happens is that the DTA will call through CCIP, which is Chainlink's protocol, and then it will send and mint the tokens. So in a nutshell, everything here, as you can see, right, has all the correct, the critical key identifiers and information to ensure that the entire fund subscription and redemption process is fulfilled throughout the entire Swift network to the blockchains, right? Now, this basically answers quite a few questions. So one, it does not substantially change the workflow, right? Two, right, it sends up the proof of delivery up back to the blockchains, right? And three, this opens up the Swift platform, right, to being able to to settle the funds or any digital assets actually payment through fiat payments. So this opens 11,500 endpoints in over 200 countries, right? So this inadvertently helps with the adoption of digital assets. With that, I will hand it over to Sergey for a very nice demo.
Great. Yeah, so basically the Swift system is performing some key functions, and the digital transfer agency smart contract is performing key functions in its fund admin role. And then the CCIP protocol is performing some key cross-chain functions to make the digital transfer agent smart contract work successfully with the mint and burn capabilities of the tokenized fund contract. So all of this is working together to create a blockchain-based tokenized fund with on-chain digital transfer agency, where you can pay for that utilizing the Swift network, which basically opens up a huge universe of users. And opening up that huge universe of users makes the fund more likely to be successful, because there is a much larger universe of institutional users that can now subscribe to the fund over their existing rails, using their existing private keys, over their existing standards, right? And this is beneficial to the existing standard because it gets more adoption. It's beneficial to the asset manager because they have a larger user base. And it's beneficial to the new system because the existing messaging system, the existing standard, the existing payment system is now made compatible, right? This is the body of work that we've successfully achieved here. And it's very exciting because it's actually for a real fund, and it's actually for something that can be very immediately usable and useful. Now I'm just going to run through a demo to show you how this works in practice through a working demo. So this is the interface that we built to manage some of these transactions that utilize Swift messages. What you'll see is that there's multiple messages and multiple blockchain transactions that are both responsible for a DVP event, a delivery versus payment event. You can go in here and kind of issue a delivery versus payment event across these two counterparties and their relevant custodians. You basically arrive at a pre-settlement phase where things are agreed on. That pre-settlement phase then leads to the locking of an asset and some on-chain events. Then those on-chain events trigger the payment flow. And the payment flow, which happens within Swift across the existing Swift systems, then triggers the final on-chain events. And those final on-chain events are paid for by those Swift messages, right? So this is all working and possible in terms of the interaction of the existing system, the Swift standards, the Swift private keys, which makes them more usable and more useful for the blockchain community because now they can interact. And it's facilitated through the Chainlink platform to the benefit of everybody who now wants to use on-chain financial products through Swift messages and Swift standards. So it's very exciting and it's very positive. I think it's been a great collaboration, and now it's including more and more large financial institutions. Excited to see where this goes next, and very positive about it going towards real world live outcomes. So thank you very much for your attention. I think there was a question section.
So my question is, when will this solution go live?
You want me to take the first part, I guess? On
Yeah,
your side?
I'll take
sure.
the second part there.
So in this case, you can imagine already the latter part of the payments is already done, right? We're very close to production. You've probably seen our article that we released, or press release that we said we're going to live trials. So we are looking at this particular use case to be part of those live trials as well. So I would say I could say with some it would be looking towards end of 2025, early 26. I'm putting my leg out there, right? Where we will have potentially a support of live product in Swift for our side of things.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think, as was just mentioned, this is going to be something that we do in the live trials. That's exciting. And the live trials are the final stage before production. So we're kind of in the final stage here with real institutional users, with real institutional use cases, with real counterparties, real markets. So now we're in the final kind of stages, live trials in this coming year, and then very eager to go to production past those live trials, depending on the speed that they complete at. But at that point, it would arrive at a live product, and that live product would be usable by the Swift members, which is basically the whole global financial system.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the very interesting presentation. So based on the use cases you presented, is your use case only limited to subscription, or are you exploring other use cases?
So there are other use cases. So you can see that this is it's triggering a payment from a DLT platform, right? So it can be used in many different cases. We've been experimenting. If you've seen our POC, Sandbox POC 2, Sandbox 2, sorry, you would have seen that we've also we imagined a trade platform that would trigger multiple orders from a single PO order. So this can be in the same way can be utilized in that manner. And we are looking for use cases like that out there. So yes, it can be utilized for more. Or I think we're also looking at other things like at other areas. So that's just one. That's just one use case. The other two would be DVP and PVP.
Yeah, so this is very generally applicable. This was just an example of what it's applicable to in the form of a fund subscription. In this situation, in this diagram, it's also usable for fund redemption, but it's usable very far beyond this. For all delivery versus payment, all PVP, all of these variations that you want to do, all the variations that you can have blockchain assets and Swift payments interacting with, eventually the plan is to support all of them, right? So every kind of interaction that you would want a Swift payment to have with a blockchain-based asset should eventually be supported. And the initial implementation is beyond supporting this use case. Even in the initial implementation, various DVP, various other use cases are supported. That's why it took some time to build the full implementation, because it's not just isolated to a certain use case. It's generally be usable across various use cases, various digital asset, various transaction types. So it's made to be very generally applicable. If you have a use case where you want to utilize Swift payments, Swift messages to interact with blockchains, I encourage you to try and join the live trials and be part of them and see how we can all collaborate on this. And basically, I would assume that this should be able to handle your use case. That's what I would assume.
Can I ask a question to the speaker from UBS? Because previously you mentioned the challenges here. And so how you see the benefit you can get from these user cases? Thank you.
So I think when you look at like the operation of a fund, there's a lot of activities that still need to happen off-chain. So I put it this way: if you list out all the activities around the operation of a fund, some of them may be solved with certain types of on-chain payments, certain types of kind of smart contracts that can exist natively on-chain. But for a lot of other activities, from risk, compliance, corporate action processing, there's just a lot of things that to integrate back with our core systems, our core accounting systems, risk systems, etc., you're going to need to have a way to digest that information back. And the two options for, at a very practical level for an operations function would be you either build the whole on-chain infrastructure, or you have something existing today that can be made adaptable. And so I think from our perspective, it's a very practical solution, because unless we might be some roadmap out away from getting everything on chain, and in reality, kind of in that journey on the way there, we're going to have certain pieces that will probably remain. The payment piece, as I alluded to earlier, for a fund, very practically as well, is that what's inside the fund are traditional assets. So we have to buy the traditional assets to settle those transactions, to settle all those wholesale flows between us, distributor, us, our custodian, service provider. This is all going to happen through like bank accounts for the foreseeable future. And so unless we find a way to really bring some of the existing infrastructure closer to where we're trying to tokenize, I think it's going to be very hard to really realize that vision that we're all seeing. Maybe in 20 years everything will be on chain and this is great. That's the journey, but I think in the meantime there's a lot of steps along the way where these solutions become extremely practical for commercializing.
What's the key challenge that you foresee can be the biggest hurdle?
Yeah, so I think from the fund manager perspective, it's you change the mindset a little bit, which is when you design the product from the first place, it's not just about what do you put inside the fund, what structure to use, but also what smart contract structure or configuration you want to have, which chain to put it at least as a base to start, so that you can start interacting with all these different use cases. And so I think in some of the examples shown today, we spent a lot of time, at least at the beginning of the project, thinking about how does the smart contract standard that we might be using work with CCIP, and how might that work with on the back end, I'm sure for Swift as well, how that kind of integration happens. But it's important to design from the beginning with the expectation that this is how it's going to be used. So I think that's the hardest part for us, is to really set the right base standard. And so and we use some of those in this implementation today to make it as easy as possible, where if someone wants to try something, we don't have to add anything like very new. We can just unlock it, and the integration becomes like a very quick exercise. So it's just creating that flexibility is probably the biggest challenge that we try to solve for on our side.
So I think for Swift side, it's about finding the right use cases that would be under the three parts: DDP, PVP, and triggering a payment. When Swift builds products, it needs to be robust. We serve 11,500 clients, right? They're all our owners. We are cooperative. It's important that the system remains robust no matter what. So when we do this testing, it's actually key to find all the different nuances, how different options will play out for the triggering payments. It could be as simple as not having a third party in between, for example. It could be, right? And we need to listen to that as well.
I think that the challenging problem when you're transferring value is always security, and keeping that value secure and making sure that it's working properly and it has the reliability guarantees and the security guarantees that Swift and its members need and value. Chainlink has done a good job of that over time, for over 5 years on production, over $16 trillion enabled by that security. The big problem in the capital markets when transferring value and information is compliance, and the ability for all of that transfer of value and information to achieve compliance, which is actually very varied across different jurisdictions. Different parts of the world have different laws. And if you do a transaction across 2 different jurisdictions, you need to comply with both jurisdictions. And then there's all kinds of technical problems to create compliance that require privacy, require a whole bunch of different capabilities, basically. So I would say the security, the compliance, creating privacy for transactions, and then also finally the ability to integrate with enough systems and enough chains and enough counterparties to make the connection between all of them valuable and useful. So those are kind of the big challenges that are going to continue to happen over time, that I think the Chainlink system right now is approaching very well.
Thank you very much for your time. I think we'll close the session here. Cheers.
Thank you.